I'm going to talk a little bit about coming to our senses in the midst of karma and crisis. When Sensei introduced this theme for our fall Ango practice period, karma and crisis, I was really moved by how he introduced the notion that in the medical field, crisis is seen as a point of intervention. Um, it's when the medicine is administered, the turning point, where we have choice or agency and where things can go one way or another. Um, Several decades ago, I came across a book. I think I was maybe 19. It was in architecture school of all things. And it's this book called Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. I see Miyoshi smiling. I'm guessing as a writer, you may know this one. It was published in 1972, and it's wonderful. It's a set of, some might call them folk tales, about an emperor's travels to far off places of human imagination and memory and kind of our endless quest for beauty and meaning and belonging. And the very last paragraph of this book completely changed my life at that time and has stayed with me all these years. So I'll share that with you. It says, the inferno of the living is not something that will be. If there is one, it is what is already here, the inferno where we live every day that we form by being together. There are two ways to escape suffering it. The first is easy for many. Accept the inferno, but become such a part of it that you can no longer see it. And the second is risky and demands constant vigilance and apprehension. Seek and learn to recognize who and what, in the midst of the inferno, are not inferno. And help them endure, give them space. This inferno that we form by being together, I think that's a great description of karma and crisis. How do we, in the midst of inferno, not be inferno, not be consumed? So on Friday, I was in a place called Valley of the Gods in southern Utah. And now I'm camped in western Arizona, a little south of a place called Valley of Fire, which is near Las Vegas, Nevada. And I learned recently that Las Vegas in Spanish means the fertile plains, Las Vegas. So life is a little bit like that, isn't it? From the Valley of the Gods to the Valley of Fire to the fertile plains and back again. The Buddhist teachings describe 6 realms of existence. They can be thought of as literal cycles of birth and death, or as metaphors for psychological states. And they really think of them as kind of interpenetrating each other. But we have the demigod and the god realm, and the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realms. And what's interesting is that actually all of the realms have suffering in some form. And the human realm is considered to be unique. It's where consciousness lives and where we have some freedom and maybe even some clarity to make choices, when we can actively work towards awakening. In the human realm, we have also both joy and pain, and the psychological capacity for self-reflection, and we have choice. We can choose a different, more liberating path. So this is in contrast with realms like the animal realm, which is characterized by instinct, right? The animal instinct, and also ignorance in many ways. And then the hell realm, where we're just completely consumed by our anger or our fear. And then there's the realm of the hungry ghosts, where we're caught by our craving and desire. And then even the god and demigod realms are limited. They're kind of complacent in their bliss and their comfort. And often there's lack of motivation to change. And the way that I understand it, we're moving within and through these realms all the time. And our spiritual practice as humans is to become aware of this and to learn how to meet whatever is arising without ignoring it, resisting it, or attaching to it. In this way, we can become liberated from all the realms while living right in their midst. And Sensei spoke about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago in his talk about, excuse me, about being with big emotions. He used the koan, which we know of: when cold, go to the place where there is no cold. When cold, be cold. And when hot, go to the place where there is no heat. When hot, be hot. But this is easier said than done, especially with the really big stuff, right? So how do we do this? Some years ago, I was in the midst of a really major psychological crisis. Big enough that I was on extended medical leave from the University of Texas, where I was teaching at the time. And on the first day, after several months away, when I returned to partial work on campus that summer, my nervous system held out for a little bit, but I became pretty overwhelmed. I did my best to stay grounded, but by the end of the day, I was walking down the sidewalk off campus, and I just completely collapsed, sobbing in deep distress. And by collapse, not like physically on the sidewalk, but emotionally, right? Shaking, tears. And I didn't see how it was possible that I could even return to work to be normal. I felt broken, and I felt like a complete failure. I was in the inferno. I was consumed by this fear and self-doubt and a nervous system that didn't know how to be with what was happening. Somehow, somewhere in the midst of all the tears and shaking, I heard a voice that said, "Here, here, I'm right here." And I looked up and I saw the most brilliant blue Texas sky right above me, and those incredibly puffy white late August summer clouds, and the sunshine gleaming off of them. And I remember everything was so quiet, but I could hear just a faint rustling of a breeze and the heat coming up off the pavement. And I just stood there in wonder. My shoulders dropped, my tears stopped. I could feel myself breathing again. The sadness and despair were still there. I could feel their bigness, but I wasn't overwhelmed by them. I realized I was being held by something much bigger, by the sky, by the light, by the temperature. And everything was all just what was happening. So I don't know where that voice came from or what it was, and I don't actually really need to know. But what happened when I heard it, I realize is that I literally and probably spiritually came to my senses. In Zen, sensations are known as the first order of experience. They're the initial arising of something, of phenomena. And we call it often the first arrow. It's just what's happening. It's the sunlight on my skin. It's my racing heart, the tears on my cheeks, the flush in my face, the churning nausea in my stomach, the butterflies in my chest. Our practice is to return to this over and over again, the sensations in our body, our felt experience, without adding anything to it. And when we do this, we're touching into our very aliveness, life itself. Before we construct a self out of it, before we begin to discriminate, I like this, I don't like that, before we form any ideas or stories. And if you want to understand more about how that works, that kind of proliferation of the self, I recommend the video on our website. These are the 5 skandhas. These are the aggregates. This is how we make a self. But at the root, before we do that, is just what's happening, just our aliveness, which we experience as sensation. And being with our aliveness, becoming intimate with who we are, just as we are, is what we're practicing in meditation. It sounds so simple, right? But it can be hard to do. We don't want to feel some of these things. And our mind sometimes, or often, gets in the way, even when we do. So you've probably heard a version of this in beginner meditation instruction. We're taught to hold our attention on our breath or another sense object as best as we can and just notice whatever arises. So I hear a sound, right? Instantly, my mind starts to construct something. The sound was pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. The sound was outside. I think it was a truck. Wonder what kind of truck. Oh, shoot, I forgot to take that package to the post office. Dang it. I'm so forgetful. My nephew's going to be so disappointed. Birthday gift didn't come in time. Why can't I do anything right? Oh my God, such a, I won't curse here, but I'm a terrible aunt sometimes. And all of this when I just heard a sound outside the window. So if you were keeping track, that was 9 arrows on top of the first one, just in that moment. One time I did a drawing of all of the arrows around a certain situation that I was having. And I highly recommend this. It was actually pretty astonishing. Like my page just got filled with arrows very quickly. But it was really helpful to see how much I was adding to this initial experience. And I don't even remember what it was. It was something likely to do with fear or grief or something, but just all of my opinions and judgments and things on top of just what ultimately was actually just a feeling, a sensation. When I can return to just the first arrow, to the direct experience without adding anything to it, then whatever it is just what's happening. And it will arise and it will pass away just like any sensation. It's impermanent. We call it emptiness. Although some things feel pretty fixed, don't they? I read once that all sensations last only 90 seconds. It's like an ink blooming in water, and then poof, it's gone. It's our minds that fix them, that turn them into infernos. What we resist persists. In the Heart Sutra, we chant, Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness are likewise like this. Right now, it's like this. Our practice is to return to this, to just this. The first arrow, just what is happening over and over and over and over again, as best as we can. And when we can do this, we can go to the place where there is no cold, and to the place where there is no heat. When cold, be cold. When hot, be hot. When in an inferno, be in an inferno. And then the inferno is not inferno. It's just what's happening. So some years ago, during a week-long retreat at Great Mountain Zen Center, I was waiting online for Dokusan to see Shishin Roshi, the teacher there. And this was probably maybe day 4 or 5 of the retreat. It was pretty deep in. And this is a formal Dokusan line. I think there are some that are even more formal than Great Mountain, but Great Mountain is definitely more formal than what we do out at Willow Farm. And at the time, this was a teacher that I didn't know very well. I've gotten to know him better now. And he was all in really formal robes, and everything felt really intimidating. And in a full Dokusan form, the way that it works is you leave the Zendo and you go into a place where there's rows with multiple zabutons, cushions, all one after another. And everybody who wants to go in to see the teacher is sitting in line waiting. And there's this rather elaborate system of bells for signaling, like when the Roshi rings the bell, it dismisses the person he's with, and the next person in line strikes this other bell twice, and that signals that they're going to come in. And then they go to the door and they do a standing bow next to the other person who's leaving, and then they enter. And then everybody who's in line gets up and moves one cushion further closer to that bell, right? And in my opinion, it's designed to induce fear. Like you can't not face your fear in this kind of setup. It's just, it's gonna come up. I don't know anybody who, doesn't have some level of, as you get closer and closer in line, right? Some of us maybe more than others, but you can feel the approaching time, when I'm gonna be the next one to go. And I was always really terrified. My heart would start racing and my palms would get sweaty and my mouth would be really dry. Then this one time, I had heard this teaching about when cold be cold. So while I was waiting, as my fear kept getting bigger and bigger, I was like, okay, I'm going to practice with this. When afraid, be afraid. What does this feel like? How is this permeating my body? What is this? What is this that's happening? And something happened. It was kind of like when I looked up at the sky when I heard that voice. All of a sudden, my senses just opened wide up and my eyes kind of went wide. I mean, I'd been in Zazen, but they just popped open and the whole room just started to vibrate. And what I realized was that I was just feeling the fear purely as a sensation. And it had somehow gotten disconnected from the fear as a story or even as a preference or not preference, right? It was just what was happening, right? What was really cool about it was that I wasn't afraid anymore. I mean, I was feeling the sensations of fear, but what it had become was just pure aliveness. I was just so alive and it felt so freeing, right? And when the time came for me to strike that bell, bong, bong, I made 2 clear strikes and then I went and I saw the Roshi just as present as can be. And then he rang his bell and I was out again. And I don't even remember what I said or what I presented on my koan. All I can remember is the aliveness. Every moment arising and then passing away. And when we can do this, We can be really intimate with what is happening. It's all just first order of experience. It's all just one arrow. Right now, it's like this. Right now, it's like this. Oh, right now, it's like this. Even our resistance is also just a sensation. I don't want to feel this. Right? So I do want to say that I wasn't able to feel this intimate right away. I was pretty disconnected from my body for years. There were times in my life when actually it was too overwhelming, and that's okay too. But over time, through this practice, I could open up more and more to my experience, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. But our capacity for being with whatever is does expand. Joko Beck wrote in Everyday Zen about creating a bigger container. She says, as we do this practice, we need to be charitable with ourselves. We need to recognize when we're unwilling to do it. No one is willing all the time. And it's not bad when we don't do it or we can't do it. We always do what we're ready to do. I learned over time, whether I was ready for it or not, just like with my breath, my senses were always available to me. And the world is calling to me all the time. So last week, I was camped. Thomas is joining me, by the way. Last week, I was camped in a place called Bears Ears National Monument in southern Utah. And there's a beautiful juniper tree on a big rocky outcropping over the canyon there in a place called Butler Wash that the cats and I would sit under almost every day. Yeah. On the night when the Buddha became enlightened, he also sat on the earth under a Bodhi tree. And the story goes that all night, all of his fears and doubts, all of his difficulties and cravings arose in the form of Mara, an Indian demon who represents our deepest doubts, fears, and sense of powerlessness. Oh, right now it's like this. Thomas just yanked my headphones out of my ears. Um, so let me rewind just a moment here. So Mara, an Indian demon who represents our deepest doubts, fears, and our sense of powerlessness. So Mara even sent vast armies of delusion to attack Shakyamuni. When they were at their strongest, Mara claimed that the seat of enlightenment rightfully belonged to him, not to some mere mortal. And the armies cried out, "Yes, yes, I am his witness." So Mara challenged Buddha's worthiness, asking him, "Who do you think you are to sit on this spot and seek enlightenment? Who is your witness?" The Buddha reached down and put his hand on the earth. And the earth responded and said, "I am your witness." And Mara and all of the armies disappeared. And then as the morning star rose in the sky, Siddhartha Gautama was enlightened. He realized who he was, and he became a Buddha, or awakened one, which is what Buddha means. And according to the text, upon awakening, he said, How wonderful, how wonderful. I, together with all beings and the great earth, simultaneously attain the way. I, together with all beings and the great earth, simultaneously attain the way. Now, it's said that Mara was only temporarily discouraged, and that even after the Buddha began teaching and became deeply revered throughout India, Mara continued to make unexpected appearances. We all know what this is like, right? But instead of ignoring Mara or driving him away, the Buddha would calmly acknowledge his presence and say, "I see you, Mara. I see you." And he would invite him for tea and serve him as an honored guest. He would offer Mara a cushion even so that he could sit comfortably. And the Buddha would fill 2 cups with tea and place them on the low table between them, and only then would he take his own seat. Mara would stay for a while and then go. And throughout, the Buddha would remain free and undisturbed. Now, in my experience, Mara isn't a demon from the past. It's the fear and delusion and discontent and desire and doubt and shame and arrogance that live in me all the time. All the conditioned patterns of my small habit mind. Who am I to think I'm enlightened or that I have anything to offer? So many flaws, so imperfect, so lacking in so many ways. When Mara visits us in these forms, when we are overwhelmed by our karma, by our perceived insufficiency or lack, or in the face of overwhelming crisis, we can turn to the earth and to each other to help us remember who we really are. And we can say, "I see you, Mara." I, together with all beings and the great earth, simultaneously realize the way. We are so much bigger than we think we are. Schoen spoke last week about collective karma, and that, as Norman Fisher says, we are responsible for everything that happens to us. Everything. And I remember during the discussion, we were kind of struggling with this, like, everything? I mean, I can get it intellectually, but really? Like, how do I do that? It feels impossible. And from the view of our small selves, it probably is. No, we can't possibly grasp this or meet it. But from the oneness that we truly are, I and all beings and the great earth, we can do this. The goddess of compassion, Avalokiteshvara's head exploded into 1,000,000 pieces at the suffering of the world. Afterward, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas helped to reassemble the pieces, giving Avalokiteshvara 11 heads with which to hear the cries of the suffering and 1,000 arms and eyes with which to respond. And I like to think that each one of us at any given moment are one of these hands. In reality, we are all of them, all of the time. In our precepts class, we've been studying the 3 treasures, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In one of our readings, Bernie Glassman says, "The 16 precepts that we receive are all an expansion of these three. And really, it's only an expansion of one, which is Buddha. Be Buddha first. If we fully understand what that is, what it means to be Buddha, what is meant when Shakyamuni Buddha said, "How wonderful, how wonderful. I and all beings and the great earth together are simultaneously awakened." Then we truly have Jukai. All sentient beings are nothing but Buddha. If we fully understand this, then we understand all the precepts. There's a line in the precept ceremony that invokes this oneness. It says, next, you will reveal yourself as the three treasures. We reveal ourselves as the three treasures, as Buddha, as Dharma, as Sangha. Nancy Mujo Baker, in Opening to Oneness, says that since we are the three treasures, we take refuge not in the three treasures, but as the three treasures. In this sense, then, what we're doing is we are taking refuge in ourselves. Not our small selves, but our true selves. We are so much bigger than we think we are. In Hawaiian traditional culture, there's a practice, really more of a prayer, called ho'oponopono. It's a practice of reconciliation and forgiveness. Ho'oponopono can be translated literally as to make right or to make good. And there are 4 simple steps to the practice. And the order is not that important. The best part of Ho'oponopono is that you can just do it yourself. You don't need anyone else to be there. You don't need anyone to hear you. You can say the words out loud or in your head. The power is in the feeling and the willingness of the universe, of the one body, to forgive and to love. And it goes like this. First, I'm sorry. The simplest way to begin with this is to practice with something, someone that you've caused harm to yourself. Start there and just say you're sorry. That's the whole step. I'm sorry. It can be even more powerful if you want to say it in more detail. Sorry, I realize that I'm responsible for whatever this is in my life, and I feel terrible regret and sadness and remorse that something in my consciousness caused this. But you can also practice this just with others who are struggling or who may be creating harm in their own lives. In spiritual practice, we realize that we are responsible for everything, even if it seems to be out there or in the past. Once you realize this, it's very natural to feel sorry for everything and everyone. This is deep compassion. Step 2, ask forgiveness. Please forgive me. Don't worry about who you're asking or why. Just ask, please forgive me. Say it over and over and mean it. Remember your remorse from step 1 as you ask to be forgiven. And even if you're doing this practice for someone else or for people you don't even know, it's still effective. You're asking forgiveness on behalf of the one body of which we are a part. Please forgive me. And then step 3, thank you. And it doesn't really matter who or what you're thanking. Thank your body for all it does for you. Thank yourself for doing the best that you can. Thank your struggles for showing you what you need to see. Thank God. Thank the universe. thank whoever has been harmed. Whatever it is that they just forgave you, just keep saying thank you. And step 4, I love you. Say, I love you. Say it to your body. Say it to the world. Say it to God. Say, I love you to the air that you breathe, to the house that shelters you. Say, I love you to your challenges, to your faults. Say it over and over. Mean it. Feel it. There's nothing as powerful as love. And that's it. It's simple and powerful, and you can repeat it as much as you like. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Ramana Maharshi, the South Indian Hindu sage, was once asked, how should we treat others? And he replied, there are no others. We are so much bigger than we think we are. In the midst of the inferno, in the midst of crisis, this is good medicine for me to remember. Come to your senses, touch the earth, and remember who you are. And has become my practice, I'll end with a poem. Morning sun drapes hazily across the rugged mountain. Soft breeze gently whispers. The rocks announce their stillness with shadows, resting patient on the desert floor. Day in and day out, the cactus stand watch with open arms, receiving the warmth of the morning glow, letting come, letting go, the wind, the rain, the darkness, the snow. Thank you for listening.